It's a real pleasure to be here. The fact that this conference is called Sustainable Seafood Adding Value gives me great heart because I've been hammering byproducts for years and I really feel like we're starting to make some progress. So thank you for having me back to talk to you about byproducts again. I have been very fortunate recently to be able to go to North America and Iceland. I went with Alan Groves, who was representing AFL, and Rikarangi Gage and Richard Jeffries from Te Pūtea Whakatupu Trust. My role in this was to go along and look at North America and Iceland from the perspective of somebody who does byproducts research, to see what they're doing and to see how it compares with some of the things that we've been reading in the media, which I may not necessarily agree with. So what I'm going to do today is just give you a brief overview of what I found out when I was overseas, and then finally give you an introduction to this fantastic new collaborative project that we're doing, which has huge potential to make a big difference to our industry. So, we visited two huge fishing companies in Seattle, Trident and American Seafoods, and they were so welcoming. It was absolutely fantastic. It wasn't what I expected at all. They are high volume fish suppliers. Trident is bigger than our fishing industry. They've got a lot of focus on high quality fish. They're making a lot of fish meal and oil and some limited secondary bulk products, particularly like collagens and omega-3 type oil products and mineral supplements. American Seafoods is very similar, smaller but still enormous, and they have the same sort of product mix, but they have gone a little bit further through and are marketing a branded omega-3 product. And Richard Draves from American Seafoods was very, very keen on me seeing this picture here, which I think says a lot. So this is aboard one of their trawlers. And these are the guys on the line. They're sorting roe. They're sorting a whole heap of different tissues because these guys have all got a huge desire to get the maximum value from their fish. And these guys are sorting roe on board the vessel, and he told me they have 18 different grades of roe. So that gives you some idea of just how serious they are about extracting value from their fish beyond the fillet. Following that, we went off to Iceland. And Iceland is different in a way to the other two because they're smaller. They have a real focus on fillet quality. They catch fish to order, which was sort of wow. They land all their quota, and an enormous drive for utilising all of the resource to maximum value. So I thought I'd put just a general fish product cascade in here so that you can see what these companies do. So from the cod that you can see there, you're getting mostly, it's all going to fillet. In Iceland, it's a real emphasis on fresh. With the other ones, it's more frozen and processed. You're getting offal, you're getting mince, various other processed type products that are made from trimmings. And this one that really we're just starting to come to grips with here in any sort of way, which we call bits in a box, which is what the guys on the line were doing. So that's putting organs, heads, and all those things into a higher value product instead of sending them to the rendering plant. You've got your rendering plant, which is essential to the operation of these things. So you're making fish meal, you're making oil of various qualities, and then going right through to nutraceuticals, cosmeceuticals, various sorts of sophisticated food products. What I found quite interesting, because it is different to what I'd been led to believe, particularly about Iceland, is that all of the fishing companies are in this space here. So they are, they're fishing and they're rendering. And there's a small amount of activity in the nutraceutical space. but most of the activity in the nutraceutical space is from secondary companies who are small, specialist, really high tech. The thing that was the surprise for me was the simple non-Phillip food products and organs, and particularly in Iceland, they're making a huge amount of money out of these things, and it's an area that we just are not exploiting nearly enough and should be. This is things like dried heads, dried collars, roe, jerky, things which are not technologically challenging and we should be doing. So there's a lot of comparison between New Zealand and Iceland, and I keep being told we should be like Iceland. So I looked at Iceland to say, can we be just like Iceland? But there are similarities, but there are also significant differences. So if you look at the cod fishery in Hoki, given fluctuations in the catch, it's fairly similar in the amount of volume. And it's the cod fishery where Iceland has actually focused all of their innovation. If you look at the other things that they're catching large volumes of things, but large amounts of it is actually going to fish meal. The other thing that really stands out from this is that they have much more fish than us, and we have a lot more species. So the byproduct strategy in Iceland, although it's very relevant to us, particularly for cod, I don't believe that we can just take what they've done and done it here. We need to develop something that's special, that's selective for us. Had a fantastic visit at Morel. You know, there was more stainless steel, there was electronics, it was just, you really got to go there. But Birger Gudmundsson put the slide up when he was talking about what happened in Iceland. And everyone had said to me, oh, you know, we're catching half as much fish and making twice as much money. But it's not until you actually see this graph that you go, oh my God. So the dark blue line is how much fish was caught in 1981 and in 2011. And the pale blue line is how much money they got for it. And there's a little bit of dispute about the dollar values because I'm not entirely sure how they got this, but it gives you the general picture of exactly what happened. And I asked them, I said, how did you get here? Expecting them to say that there was a lot of visionary fabulousness going on, but they said, actually, it was desperation, absolute desperation. There was a whole series of crises, quota dropping, financial crises, and it got to the point they had to innovate or they would die. So that's the thing. And so what they did, they moved to fresh versus frozen, they moved to high value fillet, huge amounts of technology to do things better so that they're more efficient, that the quality is better, and I would love to say that all of that change was actually due to the byproducts, but it's not. It contributes, and it's probably further down the list there. So when I came back and I saw this, had this diagram, I drew it up, and I thought, what would happen if I put Hoki on there? And you may dispute the numbers a bit, but I used a 70 cents in the dollar conversion to US and the numbers from Seafood New Zealand. And really, I think that says it all. Are we desperate enough yet? I think the good thing about all of this, from what I'm finding with all the inquiries that I'm getting about byproducts processing and all of the fantastic work that is being promoted here today, yes, we are desperate enough, and that's fabulous. You can just see, you know, if you look at those Hoki numbers, the room for added value is just massive. And if Iceland can do it with a population of Christchurch, surely we can do it. So, moving on from that, I'd like to talk a little bit about a really fantastic project that I'm involved in with AFL and Sanford. And this is starting to address some of these issues that are going to help double our return, not just from Hoki, but from some of the other species that we've got. So we're starting out with the inshore fishery, And what we're trying to do is we want to understand the resource potential of our fish, what we can do with it, how we can make more money for it in a rational way. There's a whole bunch of fishing companies working together to do this project. There's a whole lot of researchers working together to do this project, and MBIE is giving us lots of support through various programs to actually help fund it. It's a fantastic effort. What we realised is that we really don't know very much about our byproducts. So the stuff that's published is flesh only. It's the food composition tables and Seafood the Good Food out of Australia. There's a whole bunch of confidential reports which are within the seafood companies and from CRIs, but most people don't have access to them, and it hasn't been done in a coordinated manner. The only light in the darkness, really, is Peter Vlieg's work from 1988. Heroic. He did 62 finfish species. He pulled them all apart. He looked at what was in every single bit of everything. But the problem that we have with it is that at most he only used 6 fish, and it was from one area. We do know that we have potential, and there's been a lot of work about this, discussion about this in the rest of the talks here today. We all know we've got a lot of species, there's lots of stuff we can do. So what our project is about, how much have we got, what have we got, when, and what can we do with it? We're doing sampling, analysis, rendering yields, and one of the most important parts of the project has actually been carried out by Malcolm Wright at Massey University, and he's looking at what's so special about some of the big nutraceutical products that are being marketed overseas and what can we learn from that. Because interestingly, the guys at American Seafoods, who you would think would have no problem with this sort of thing, said that their biggest challenge was knowing how to market products that weren't fish. As well as all of this, from this we're going to be able to get a model for researching more species, because we're currently only doing 4. And there's a lot of skills and people development. We're bringing students in, we're training staff at both the research institutes and at the companies. So it's a fantastic project. To give you just a bit of an idea of what's involved, and I'm going to ignore it when that timer goes off, but so at the moment we're looking at 4 species, 1 to 2 locations, and 2 samplings per year for each of those variables. We're taking 150 fish because that's what our statistician said we had to do. Length, fillet, byproduct weight, catch, location. Then the fillets are going down the line and being treated as normal so we don't waste them. 20 of those fish are selected randomly, so every 7th fish is going through to a rendering process so that we can find out what would happen if we put it through a standard rendering plant. And the rest of them are being split into heads, frames, skins. The gonads are being split into male and female, assessed for maturity, and the liver likewise. And then every single one of those is getting mushed up to a homogeneous pulp and the composition done for every single one. It's a fantastic project. Company analysts, factory staff, researchers, all working together. If you want to know more about the mincing, Jackie, who is the star of the show, is over there, and I'm sure she'd love to talk to you about how glamorous it is. So just to finish with, I'd like to give you something to aspire to. These are pictures of real products that I took when I was in Iceland. You can see there's quite a few of them. The good news is that we have the ability to make most of these things now. We've already done the research. But what we need is someone with the guts to make them and commercialise them. Thank you.